Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Johan Karinas. You're watching Sim Experience South Africa, and we're back with some racing action on the Sunday evening. We're driving at the Townsville circuit. For those of you that might know it by its other name, it's a Ride Park street circuit. It's a temporary, a semi-permanent street circuit located in, of course, Townsville, Queensland, Australia. Opened in 2009, so a lot more recent than the track that we've been running as of late. As I just try and find someone that's actually on the track, jumping to Dennis Mitchell. So, looking at the championship standings, our man on camera here, Dennis Mitchell, leading the championship with 196 points. And also closely followed by Donnie van Rooyen. So these were the two finishers, or race winners, for the last session that we had, which would explain why they're so high up. Timo Smith, not to be forgotten yet. He's fighting hard for this championship, and he's been putting in a lot of effort. So we'd also like to see his efforts pay off. So that's always fun looking at how the prep for these circuits go. Down the field, further down the field, Dylan Versace, Melvin Goos, Mornay de Ploy, Alistair, Sean Webber, Peter Galnys, Peter Grobler. So those Peters are still staying together. Ian Upton, Roman Bauer. But further down, Craig Wesley, Sean Johnson, Mitchell Rust, James Leach, Marius van Wyk, Rian van der Westhuizen, Dani Stander, Harvey Goos, Herman Nieuwoud, Jason Craig, and Skalk Versace. Looking at the weather, I think I might have a bit of different stuff showing up here, but it's a fairly cool air temperature, 26 degrees Celsius, track is at 38, so erring on the warm side. But everything is looking good for some excellent racing. The track in and of itself, they call it the paperclip. I have no idea why. It doesn't even look like a paperclip on the layout. But why don't we jump on board with someone and see what it looks like from the perspective of the driver. Let's maybe go to Donnie van Rooyen. So while I try and orientate myself here on the circuit itself, the circuit is fairly narrow. But for the on-street sections, it does feel like it provides some nice overtaking opportunities. So these chicanes that you see here are pretty slow, but you'll see now as we start working our way through to the main straight. So it's a few more corners, a very sharp turn 13 onto the main straight. So this is really important. Apologies, I had the wrong turn in my head. This is turn 13. The previous one I spoke about was turn 11. So turn 13, very important. And this is what I was talking about, the overtaking opportunity. So it's a long straight going down towards turn 2. Well, this was turn 1, but we didn't really regard that. But the first real corner, and you can just see it opening up with that braking zone for so many overtaking opportunities. If you can get alongside and conquer that inside line, that's going to be a really good position to have. Also very important here is making sure that you keep that back end stepped in. It's a street circuit, so you've got walls very close. There's little to no runoff. There's no gravel traps really to save you. So if you're going to have a bad time, I suspect that somebody else might also be picking up the pieces afterwards. So expect some chaotic driving if incidents do happen, but I expect the drivers to also be very aware of that, and that their self-preservation instinct will result in a lot more cleaner racing that the track layout would suggest. You'll also see the pit lane entry there running alongside on the right hand side, so it seems to be a bit of a longer pit lane than we're used to. So if you need to pit for damage, it's going to also cost you a lot of time. but we do not have mandatory pits, so I don't expect that pitting is going to really come into play. If you have damage to go into the pits, your race is pretty much already in shambles at that point, unless you make one hell of a drive back. So yeah, looking at the chat, so everyone vote saying hello and saying thanks Melvin, go, I'll watch you. So I think I might have missed some earlier messages, but still some nice respect between these drivers, and that's kind of also a big part of the point of the series that's really stuck out for me, is just the respect that these drivers have for one another. And also you can see it, you can clearly see it from the way they drive. There's no one really forcing someone off track. There are definite attempts to give each other space, and you can see up on the road actually pulling off the line to make sure that no one slams into him as he resets to the pits. Okay, as we get a nice little burnout from Donny on the road, I'm going to actually jump into the action. And speaking of action, Timo Smith right in the middle of it as we switch to him. So sitting second in qualifying, I think he'll be really happy with that. I do think he's throwing the lap away and deciding to just get going with everything. Dennis Mitchell sneaking in there with a little lap of his own. The fastest I saw in practice was 12.442, if I'm correct. So these guys can go quicker, but it's already really close to what they've been doing. So I think there is an opportunity for someone that can hook up a lap, but it's already a good representation of what you can expect from the grid. So you've got the two championship leaders up in front, then you've got Timo Smith, someone that we haven't really looked at today is going to be Dylan Vasaki, and behind him Melvin Goos. And the level of these drivers is just insane. I've been driving with some of the guys from the mid pack, and I struggled to keep up. So that just goes to show the caliber of driver that we have here. It's not just your normal weekend warriors, but it's guys that are really dedicated and they put in a lot of practice. Melvin Goos also looking good in his first position. Good representation of where he is in championship standings at the moment. So I do think, while he might have something in the pocket, he can be very happy with where he's placed that car at the moment. Someone that I do need to check my championship standings for this. Yeah, someone that's in a very, very good qualifying position is going to be this gentleman right here, Craig Wesley, sitting in 7th. Now Craig in the championship standings is sitting there with a 13th position. So there's definitely been some improvement from this guy right here. And I just realized I've been showing you all the cockpit cameras for too long. Your ears must be bleeding by this point. So let's look at what the cars look like on the outside. We've now gotten a fairly good idea of what the track looks like from the driver's perspective. So let's see the action from the TV cameras. Looking a bit further down the back, just at guys that I can talk about, and a name that does jump out to me, but I don't know if it's just because we've got less guys participating in this session, but Ariel van der Westhuizen sitting in a really interesting position. He also seems to have changed the livery on his car. Now, I don't know if that might have been due to a team's change, or if he just preferred... It might actually be that he's even running a new car, but I I'm not going to remember well enough to be able to tell you that. But he's looking really good in his 11th qualifying position. Just finding it a bit tricky to find the space to let the faster drivers through, and that's the thing about street circuits. It's always going to be really difficult to find a gap for the other drivers around you. James Leach jumping up into 6th. Now that's a very impressive twist. So, unfortunately, a bit of commentator skills. I'll leave you alone for now, James, but I'll still talk about you. Sean Webber also looking really nice here in a fifth position. So, James Leach is one of those guys that he's got considerable pace, but he's got the luck of drivers like Bottas, where he's just kind of found himself in all of the wrong places at all of the wrong times. So definitely going to keep my fingers crossed for him. I'll see if I'll maybe keep him away from the cameras, because it does seem like I have picked up a bit of a commentator's curse. So I'll leave James Leach alone for this session, and we'll just keep an eye on his standings during the race. But that's a really good qualifying position for him. Also someone that's is working hard, and unfortunately this gentleman right here has been, well, he's still in the pits, so we'll go to him a bit later. Peter Kalnies, 11th position, so that's looking good. Maybe a bit of time to find, but he's looking pretty solid where he is. And who's swapped up ahead? So still Van Rooyen, Mitchell, Smith, Basagi, Bose. I think someone might have overtaken Sean Webber. Yeah, something happened here, because James Leach, I think it was Sean Webber that actually jumped up, because James Leach has been dropped back to 7th. Still a good position for him. I think he'll be very happy with that. Almond Goes showing us how it's done here through the chicane, and it's a really tricky set of corners just with the way that these cars weight transfers to the outside. Remember, you don't have the high downforce of something like a F1 or LMP car, so you really need to utilize your suspension and your mechanical grip. But yeah, looking very solid. No one dipping into that the range of the 112 4.5 that I was referring to earlier, so I think the guys are just trying to get in some nice and neat laps, and not, or trying not to take one another out, and I haven't seen incidents, so must be working. Mitchell Rust making his way down past turn 1. Trying to find that proper turning point and seeing what he can do with the car. It's nice to see that the curbs aren't throwing the cars all the way into the walls. So you would have seen him, Mitchell, using some of the curb there. And he got pulled into the inside a bit there, so he still has a bit of time in hand here for the chicane. So we'll leave him to it. On track, Donny van Rooyen in the Red Bull Holden. And he's got a gentleman right behind him. Not exactly sure who that is. So he's still... So he's still on an outlap. Let's jump around to see where we can find up on the Delta. Outlap. Craig, unfortunately, not doing too well. And as we jump to Harvey, so he's made up massive amounts of time on this Delta. Finding it a bit tricky for that first corner, and you can see running deep has cost him a lot of time, but let's see if he can claw back that time that he spent there in the first corner. So very gingerly on the throttle, he's careful not to step out the rear, so perhaps having a bit of confidence issues, and it's difficult with the track with corners as tight as these. So just having that confidence to push the car is going to be crucial, and that's what separates the experienced drivers from the more novice ones, is really being able to kind of build up that confidence as you go along, but also to do it quickly, and something that even some of the skilled sim racing drivers in leagues that I've seen struggle with. Okay, so that's unfortunately going to be a bit of a slow lap for Harvey. Jumping through the back again, so Van Rooyen is busy with the lap. Unfortunately, not as fast as he wants it to be. Dennis Mitchell avoiding one of the cars that have gone off, I think. No, I can't remember that exact car now, but Timo Smith very close to his Delta, so let's stick here. And that's a massive amount of time, but I think that might have been due to how deep he ran into the corner, and unfortunately he had to avoid the other car right there. So that's the danger of this track, is if someone gets stuck against the wall, you've got to wait for the entire pack of cars to drive past you before you really have the opportunity to even get your car turned around. Dylan Versailles in an outlap, Melvin Goes in the pits, Sean Webber coming out for an outlap, I think. James Leach will let him be. Alistair, so we've not seen him tonight, and he's also driving a new livery. So that's the Castrol LG Mustang. So he's shown himself to also be very, very competent behind the wheel of the car, and actually led a very good portion of the second race of the previous time that we raced. Also, he now has a surname, so it's not just Alistair B, but it's Alistair Barnard. So nice to finally get a hold of your full identity, Alistair. And we'll also be keeping an eye on you. So looking pretty good on the Delta, and it's turn one is going to be a bit unstable in terms of how the Delta is going to change, since you've got so many approaches with how you can do the braking. But going out of that corner is going to affect you a lot. Okay, so further down the pack, for the best stations on an outlap. Mitchell Rust, unfortunately having a bit of a rough lap. Because in among the action, so why don't we just stick here? We've got James Leach and Harvey Goes and some of the other drivers here as well. I can't recognize the other two cars just by looking at them. So this can go one of two ways. Either you can get a nice draft from the car in front, which I think James Leach is doing in the black and purple car, but you can also frustrate your opponents a bit, and it's always tricky because you do worry about the car behind you. You do worry about holding them up, while you still also have full right to your space on the track. So if that load on your attention is going to be there, it can negatively affect you. It does seem that Harvey Goes has found some time. Oh, and he's going to be very angry about that one. Slamming the wheel out of frustration. Timo Smith I don't know if his exhaust got some damage that he's dragging all of the spark behind him, but something's happening here with his suspension. So we'll see a new fresh time for him. Let's see, going into turn 1, we've got 4.5 minutes left of qualifying, so still a little bit of time to do some damage. And he is very close to Dennis Mitchell. So he'll really be looking at just at least getting those 8,000s to get into that second qualifying position. I do also think that the sparks dragging behind him might just be a visual glitch, because it does not seem at all that this car has damage. Still very close to his delta. It's all going to come down in this last few corners. You can see him losing an entire 10th on the curb there, but it opened up the line for him. Okay, 2 corners left. Let's see, what can he do here? So heavy braking, it's going to cost him a bit of time, and he must have braked a bit earlier than his usual times. Cool. Possibility of doing something, and I think that's not going to happen for him as it stands. So Dylan Versace, and okay, this is what his car looks like, because I've seen this car have a bit of trouble on the track. I couldn't remember the exact name for the driver, so that would be Dylan Versace. Hold on a minute. So, just jumping to Dennis Mitchell and Donny for the Rens qualifying times. Just look at the small space of time between them. So for Roy in a 772 and Dennis Mitchell 778. So that's put those guys out of reach of Timo, unless he's going to pull something out of his pocket. That's really close. The only other time I've seen times this close has been in hot lap qualifying sessions, and that's when drivers have almost a week to set up times. So that's really close. Dennis Mitchell not really making leeway on this lap. Van Rooyen also not making progress on his lap, but I think he can be fine for now because he's sitting comfortably in pole, and I think this might be the limit of what can be done in this qualifying session. Timo Smith, no time gained yet. Fortunately, we'll leave Dylan alone. Another driver having a bit of trouble. Okay, let's stick with maybe not Van Rooyen, but Dennis Mitchell. When that was so close when we jumped to him. So that was 5/100ths of a second that he was down on his delta. So that was extremely close to getting even closer to Donny van Rooyen. He does seem to have a bit of a time deficiency going out of turn 1. Throwing the car into the corner, unfortunately not finding the grip. Timo Smith going into turn 1, or sorry, not turn 1. Yeah, it is turn 1. I apologize. Losing only a 10th. So possibly some space to work with. His car is the only one with these sparks, so I'm now wondering, is he running a very low car and something is bottoming out? Oh wow, that looks quite violent. So when they say drive the wheels off, I don't think that's what they meant, Timo. So I'll just get my remote up here and maybe switch to someone else. Looking at the YouTube chat, Herman Nivel saying good luck to all the SRAC guys. So I think you've got 3 teams here, so good luck to the SRAC teams. What's the name? Gaming saying go Craig, go Melvin. And yeah, they have been doing quite well. And then Melvin goes, again Melvin, you have multiple screens on the YouTube channel? You should be driving. Okay, overtime. So, Van Rooyen in pole, Mitchell not being able to challenge him, jumping to Alistair Barnard, so he's on a lap, making some good time. So he's going to need almost 3/10 to jump past Melvin Goos. Melvin, I assume you're looking at this. So just to those of you that are not looking at the comments, Melvin just saying he's looking for tips, and I think he might be also giving an eye to what Alistair is up to right about now. Although I think his Alistair's little excursion onto the grass is just going to breathe a sigh of relief into Melvin's qualifying result, or breathe a sigh of relief into Melvin's qualifying results, and that spin right there is going to do it. That's it for qualifying. So your grid: Donnie van Rooyen, Dennis Mitchell, Timo Smit, as per championship standings, I think. Dylan Verzalki, Melvin Goos, Alistair Barnard, Sean Webber, James Leach, very solid 8th. Craig Wesley, Morday Deploy, Pieter Galdenhuys, Rian van der Westhuizen, Mitchell Rust, Gabi Goos and Marius van Beek. We're going to jump to ads and then we'll be right back with the race start. And welcome back everyone. So we're 20 seconds away from the race start. I finally been able to remove my car from the grid and we've got the lights going. Not revving the engines just yet, so they're waiting for the lights to go. So revving the engines and we are off. So wow, that was a long lights. Back in the background, you can see some guys really getting a nice quick start. Going into turn 1, this is going to be really important. Timo making a move in the middle, 3 wide. Someone's going to have to back out, and I think that's going to be Timo. Still 2 wide, and oh, Donnie van Rooyen, Dennis Mitchell. That's an entire heap up of cars. So some of the drivers getting out of there, but this is jumping up the pack completely. Some cars with damage. Craig Wesley running out of this with a very considerable lead. So that turn 1 has completely destroyed the race of quite a few guys. running behind Craig Wesley. I don't know how he survived, but Dennis Mitchell managed to get through turn 1 in a fairly solid one piece. Behind him, unfortunately, Peter Krobler was in contact there with the wall. Then Melvin Goos in third, Mitchell Rust in a fourth position. That's probably the highest I've seen Mitchell in a while. I think these drivers are going to be a lot more careful now. Bobby Host running deep. Sean Weber overtaking him on the inside. Jumping up ahead. Craig Wesley leading comfortably. Dennis Mitchell hunting him down. Melvin Goos in no man's land. Right in the middle. Mitchell Rust, 4th. Going into turn 1. Craig Wesley, no real danger here. He just has himself as a danger. And he opts to be careful. Dennis Mitchell closing down the gap. Further back, the cars are fairly spread out. Rian van der Westhuizen making the move and making it sick on Harvey Goos. Harvey not letting up. So again, almost 3 cars wide into the turn. Harvey backs out, and we've got Rian moving up into 5th. Wow, he's going to be happy with that one. Behind him, all kinds of jumbles. Dylan Versace under pressure here between a ton of cars. So remember, the faster drivers from the start of the race are going to try and make up. Someone taking, I think that was Harvey, taking the adventurous line across the chicane. And I'm very glad for his part that he remained control of his car, completely lifting the car, punching Dylan Versace into the wall, oversteering. Dylan Versace returning the favour, so Dylan Alistair now moving on ahead. Up ahead, Dennis Mitchell overtaking the lead from Craig Wesley. Craig Wesley trying to fight back, but doesn't have the pace. It's such a difficult corner, this one. Drafting down the main straight, also something to consider. I'm just going to jump back to this whole situation here. So Alistair Barnard, he's got Timo Smith behind him. So Timo was struggling with the start of the race, so he's fighting back on a drive back. But we also know that Alistair does have good control on his car, so it's not going to be easy to get past. Up ahead, Dylan Versace looking at Rian van der Westhuizen. Rian having a superb race and making utilization of his time at the start. If he can keep his car wide, he's going to be very happy with this. Also looking at the standings, unfortunately James Leach got caught up in the lap 1 chaos. Rian van der Westhuizen with oversteer. Dylan Versace letting him know he's there on the inside. Backing out, looking around the outside forward turn. Rian is going to close the door, say no, and unfortunately understeers. So that's going to give the opportunities for Dylan. Behind him, Timo Smith also overtaking Alistair. So Dylan made the overtake stick. Alistair now in a battle with Timo. Alistair defending on the inside, Timo on the outside. Is he going to outbrake him? Is he going to make the opportunity? No, he's got Rian van der Westhuizen in front of him. Still, Alistair considers that he doesn't really have the grip to make the top corner, so Timo is still in front of him. So much happening here. So Dennis Mitchell is running with away with the race at the moment. Now Alistair and Timo are looking at each other's bumpers again. So Alistair wisely tucks in behind Timo. They've got Rian running up in front. And I think he might be feeling the pressure now. So I'm going to jump to Timo here. Timo drifting his car through the chicane. He's really trying to get past Rian here. So it's going to be difficult. Is he going to dart out to the outside? No, he's going to keep it for the main straight, I think. Which would be considerable, but he's under pressure from Alistair. Alistair almost pump drafting. You can see Timo running on the inside defensively. He's now going to stick behind Rian. Dylan Versace up in front, also not really driving away from the pack. Alistair. Okay, so just Timo kind of bump drafting with Rian van der Westhuizen. Van der Westhuizen on the inside. Alistair might also be able to make the pass here. So we've got Timo going through, Rian and Alistair for the switchback. Unfortunately, doesn't find the gap. But this is some exciting racing here. So Rian is really finding some action here. This is good racecraft experience that he's getting here. Alistair on the inside now and decides no, that's going to be a far reach. Up in front, Dennis Mitchell running away with the race and trying to spot where Van Rooyen is. Oh, all kinds of chaos here with Alistair and Rian. Okay, Timo is closing the gap to Dylan Versace. So we know that Dani van der Rooyen is running in 10th at the moment, so behind Mitchell Rust. So he had some damage from the start of the race. I don't think he's pitted yet. So that's been opening up the points for Timo. With Dennis Mitchell out in front, that's going to kind of secure his standings at the moment. But Dennis Mitchell is running in front of Timo Smith in terms of championship points with the second place. So Timo is seeing the opportunity here to make it work. Now I do apologize, whenever I'm talking about championship points, I'm talking about Timo. But that's just because he's kind of the first guy that I stuck with as a reference point. And he also has a very notable name, and I do like the cat livery that he's got. So he's kind of been someone that I can pay attention to when we see Dylan Versace having some intimate moments with the wall. And you can see the entire pack jumping on ahead. So next man up ahead is going to be Sean Webber for Timo Smith, and that's going to take a while. So let's jump up to Melvin Goos, who is making Craig Wesley sweat up through turn 1. You can just see the car right underneath the bumper. Nice and close. Wesley going across the curb, kind of having or pulling off a skateboard move. So that's going to send Melvin Goos into a second position. I can imagine him being very happy with that. I can see there Boston Gaming shouting, shouting for Craig and Melvin and just saying yes. So you've got you've got both your drivers in second and third year. So it must be a difficult one now, because who do you pick as your favorite? Monet Deploy also having a bit of trouble, so you can see Van Rooyen jumping back into 7th. And these two drivers are the closest on track. Melvin Goos opening up a bit of a gap, but Craig is not letting himself be left behind. Massive amounts of oversteer from Melvin Goos, doing very well to keep his car in control. And Craig Wesley is going to just keep at it, keep behind him, and just look for moments like that where he can really close the distance. So we'll see what this looks like from Craig's perspective. Just how difficult is it to get that braking nailed when you're following someone through the street circuit. So you can see here, gap opens up a bit through the straights, but that also gives him the opportunity to then be unimpeded with his braking and his turning in the tight corners. I do think that's a back marker that these guys are approaching. And the gap has opened up now, so 8/10. And we'll just look at what the braking zone brings and then maybe switch around. So staying on the limiter as far as you can. He doesn't want to shift up at the end of the straight. So he might have a bit of, or he might be compromising on his gear ratios for another part of the circuit. That being said, this back marker is now holding up Melvin Goos. So this is manna from heaven for Craig Wesley. Into the chicane they go. And nice and close together. That back marker is going to have to get out of the way at some point. But it's difficult with the gaps here. Melvin Goos making use of the opportunity to go past, and unfortunately some contact with Craig Wesley there. Fortunately Craig didn't really spin out from that. Melvin Goos running completely deep. Now we've got two cars too wide, and I think Wesley might actually have the advantage here. So through the kink into the braking zone, still very close together. This is all going to depend on who gets the better drive out of the corner. Goes managing to stay on the apex a bit better, but he doesn't have the momentum or the space. Behind them we can see Sean Webber also coming into play now, so he's also going to want to fight for the pie. And I think the battle between Melvin Goos and Craig Wesley has slid them down in terms of timing, so it's definitely cost them a fair bit. Van Rooyen also making his way up in the pack, so we're still sticking with these gentlemen right here. So Melvin Goos looking for opportunity to pass, and Craig Wesley running very deep. I think Sean Webber might just be keeping his distance at this point. Oh, and we've got contact. Almost all three cars involved there, so Craig Wesley, you can see there, Melvin Goos respectfully waiting for him, so he does think that he caused the contact there. So that's what we call in the leagues a gentleman's agreement. So that's some real nice sportsmanship there from Melvin Goos. While this all has been happening, Timo Smith snuck through. So now we've got Craig Wesley behind Timo Smith, and then Alistair Barnard also coming into the mix and kind of dividing Craig Wesley and Melvin Goos. And this is looking back here. So Craig Wesley dropping back, Alistair closely following or trying to follow the pace of Timo Smith, and Melvin Goos and Craig Wesley picking up the pieces behind them. So I'm just quickly going to jump to Monet Deploy. Apologies, because he's also closing down the gap. He's got Donny van Rooyen in front of him, so Donny has been able to overtake Monet. Oh, that's a nice little drift. Not the fastest way around there, but definitely the more stylish way. And yeah, that's looking good. So he's still been sticking with Donny van Rooyen. We seem to have a bit of a back marker in between, and this is a really difficult circuit to be the slower driver on. I think that's going to allow Donny van Rooyen to open the gap between himself and Monet Deploy. Craig and Wesley and Melvin Goos are still going out. These guys are not letting up. They seem to be very closely matched on this circuit. Now you can imagine this being a huge amount of fun for the both of them. Even though they drop back a few positions, it's always nice sticking behind the people in front of you like this. But Alistair also under pressure still from Melvin Goos behind him. Unfortunately, Craig Wesley getting too close to the wall there and making a bit of contact. Both Barnard and Goos running deep and losing a bit of time. Down the main straight they go. Very close together, maybe not close enough to go to abreast, but it seems like Melvin has found the pace. just sticking behind Barnard, just waiting for a mistake from him. Barnard runs deep with oversteer. Thankfully, the wall helped straighten him a little bit, or he might have caught it before it even hit the wall. So Timo Smith hunting down Sean Webber. And there you can see Timo in the chicane. It's an interesting little line grinding over the sausage curve. Well, the curve, but it does seem quite pronounced. We'll be keeping an eye on this gap right here. So Donny van der Rooyen is on the drive back of his life, trying to see how close he can get to Timo Smith, I would presume. He's quite far back now. He's not going to be able to make any dent in that gap with the time left. So we have 3 minutes left of the race, and then it's 2 laps after that. And the closest drivers to making any changes to their race is going to be Melvin Goos, fighting here with Alistair Barnard, and then Craig Wesley behind him could still pick up the pieces. When I say 2 laps after the 3 minutes, it's going to be the race, or when the race leader crosses the finish line after the time has run out. Then there's a lap after that, and then there's an added lap, which is the final lap. And Goos finding the wall there, so that's going to hurt his chances with Barnard. A gentleman that's run away with this race completely is going to be Dennis Mitchell. And I think most of the success has been surviving turn 1, and then after that just consistency. Sean Webber is also looking good in second position, and I just want to check where he is in the standings. I'm trying to find him. So he's currently 8th in the standings, so that's going to do him a lot of good. Alistair Barnard only leads in front of Sean Webber with 1 championship point. So if Sean Webber can get this win, it's going to be very, very important for him, for his position in the championship. Timo Smith, I can imagine being very happy with this 3rd position. Webber is a bit too far ahead, but it's going to be good points for him. And especially considering his rival, Van Rooyen, being so far back due to that turn 1 incident. Let's see, where's the most action on track? It seems to be this man right here, Alistair Barnard and Timo Smith. So they are hunting. One trying to get ahead, and well, one not hunting, but just trying to defend and make sure that he holds on to his position. So Alistair's done really well in this race. Firstly, just getting to where he is, but also maintaining the consistency. Orlando Floyd moving up into 8th position. I can imagine him also being happy with that. So 20 seconds until we have our 2 extra laps. That's been an exciting race indeed. Alistair looking very solid. Clear neat, maybe a bit wide on the exit there, but no issue. Right, so Mitchell has crossed the line. We've got 2 laps to go. Floyd falling behind for Sahi at the moment. I just want to see what's happening with them here. I think that's Mornay finding one of the walls in turn 1. Sean Webber having a bit of fun with the back of the pack. Timo Smith sitting with Barnard in his mirrors. but looking very comfortable. So this is all going to depend on how consistent he can be. I don't think Barnard is going to catch him unless Timo makes a mistake. Barnard also making sure that he leaves himself in position. This is also the start or the point in the race where you need to consider self-preservation to hold on to your positions. So I'm jumping now here to Van Beek. I think that's a faster driver approaching him, and he's looking at Van Westhuizen in front of him. Both drivers doing well to keep out of contact from one another. There's Mitchell now on the final lap. He's gone through turn 1. So looking good for him. Almost 30 seconds. Well, it's 25 seconds ahead of the pack. 26 seconds. So that just shows you what keeping your nose clean can mean, and sprinkled in with a little bit of luck. Mitchell Rust having a bit of a moment. Van der Westhuizen and Marius van Beek behind him, still in that battle up to the end, and Rian runs completely deep. So that's going to be Marius grabbing position 10. Then Craig Wesley. Melvin Goos running very deep, so I think this is going to be the battle until the end of the race. Unfortunately, Mornay de Play has had to retire his car due to damage. But Mitchell across the line, so he's finished the race in first position. Then we've got these two gentlemen battling in front of us. It's Craig Wesley and Melvin Goos all the way since the start of the race. They've got their support here from Bosnian Gaming. So it's Bosnian Gaming saying, obviously I picked my dad. The problem is, who is your dad? I don't exactly know who you are from your YouTube name. Okay, so Barnard also getting very close to Smith. And right up to the end of the race, these guys are going to be very close together. Van Rooyen also coming out of nowhere. So it's going to be Melvin Goos, Craig Wesley, and then Dani van Rooyen. And that's one way to end the race. Someone that's still out is Versaghi, but I can't find him on the screens. So your finishers are Dennis Mitchell, Sean Webber, Timo Smit, Alistair Barnard, Melvin Goos, Craig Wesley, Van Rooyen, Versaghi, Van Beek, Van der Westhuizen, Rust, Deploy, Goos, Veldenhuis, and Leach. So I'm going to go to ads. We're going to have a reverse grid, and then we'll see how everything looks from there. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the long wait. We just had to patch up the barriers at turn 1, and we've got the grid ready for the start of the race. The grid is looking as follows: Mitchell Rust, Rian van der Westhuizen, and Alistair Barnard the third. I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. I think my timing screens might still be struggling. But we do have Rian van der Westhuizen at the start, and I think Mitchell Rust. So it's going to be very interesting to see where everyone ends up at this after the start. Lights are out already, and again a bit of a long wait. Lights are out. So good start from Fasaki going into second. We've got two cars running alongside, so that's going to be Metro Rust. Fasaki taking the lead, presumably, if he survives. So a lot of cars, very wide. Hunts onto Rian van der Westhuizen, and Rian van der Westhuizen survives with a bit of a ping pong effect. So some incidents, but it's actually kept the field clean. Lots of shuffling. I'm not going to be able I'm not going to keep up with this. Unfortunately, Mitchell Rust getting spun around and parked right by the marshals. Timo Smith making his way up the pack in fifth. In front of him, Melvin Goos. Donnie van der Rooyen looking at Rian van der Westhuizen. Donnie running very close in the chicane, taking both himself and van der Rooyen out. He's going to be very unhappy about that. Sean Weber has to dodge. And that's an unfortunate situation for all of them. Dylan Fasaki also having a moment all on his own, but far enough ahead so that he still maintains the lead. A bunch of drivers jumping to the pits. Melvin Goos, I'm going to jump to Barnard. Oh no. Sorry, my camera control software had a bit of an issue. Alistair bump dropping Sean Weber. And we'll see what happens in turn 1 with these drivers very close together. Sean taking the inside defensive line. Alistair trying to go around the outside. He's going to go for Chichiru. Doesn't have the pace. He's putting his nose on the inside, running alongside Sean Weber. Sean has the inside line and keeps the position. Still, the battle continues. Alistair is still alongside and decides to rather not nudge his way into the inside, but just keep his nose clean for the next section of track. Fortunately, he runs off track, so he's going to lose space there. Tornado Floyd just keeping his distance, making sure he does not get caught up in any kind of incident. Timo Smith running in third position, and we'll jump to him as soon as I'm happy that these two are done. The Sean Weber keeping Alistair at bay, and it's looking good for now. Alistair managing to follow really closely. Sean Weber running slightly deep, but that might have been to conserve the momentum. Mornay play keeping up, so that's also good. Alistair drafting. That's very close. That's 110. Alistair up the inside. Is he going to make the move stick? No, he does not. You can just see that's the difficult thing with the corner as close as or as sharp as that turn 1. You can't just go that far on the inside. You really need to squeeze your opponent to the outside of the track and force him to consider how close he wants to be to the wall on exit. But these two doing really well. Up ahead, Timo Smith putting the pressure on Melvin Goos and looking good on the points. There's Mitchell only in the 8th position and Van der Rooyen in front of Mitchell in 7th. So Timo's got an opportunity for points here if he can clear Melvin Goos. Melvin showing us that he does very well under pressure, so it's all going to come down to who's going to have the spear of pace. Now on the main straight, Timo Smith has the draft from Melvin Goos. It's all going to depend on how good he can be under braking. We're sticking nice close. That's 1/10 difference. You can see also running fairly far onto the inside and not able to make the move stick. Well, no move at all, but doesn't really have the opportunity to carry some speed through the corner and make an overtake. So he's going to fall back a bit and reassess the whole situation. We've got Sean Weber holding down the standings. I think he might have had a bit of a situation in the turn 1 corner, or he just lost pace at some other part of the track. Behind him, we've got Rian van der Westhuizen, kind of on his own. So he's been slung around in turn 1 like a ping pong ball, bounced around, and has lived to see another day, and is fighting on his own right here. Someone is making his way through the pack very quickly is Donny van der Rooyen. So he has Mornay deploy in front of him. And I don't know if Timo Smith as his race engineer has instructed the race engineer to keep an eye on someone like van der Rooyen, but this is going to put a bit of pressure on Timo at a later stage of the race. So Mornay deploy fighting for his position. He's in a very well-earned 5th position that I believe he wants to keep. So he's going to be driving like his life depends on it. We do know he has been busy a bit, and we have some different leagues in the pipeline thanks to him. So he doesn't have as much practice below his belt as some of the other drivers here, but it's definitely to the advantage of all of us in the community. Of course, there's more people involved with those series that are in the pipeline as well, but the one that I personally know about is Monday deploy. And unfortunately, see, Peter Geldnys, if we look at the YouTube chat, has unfortunately found a portion of the map where the physics engine breaks and there's essentially a bit of a black hole. It's the difficult thing with these Assetto Corsa tracks that you have. Oh, and that's Alistair Barnard completely slamming into the wall. So Mornay, you're in 4th now and being hunted down by a very fast looking Van der Rooyen here. And behind him is Dennis Mitchell. The 2 championship contenders duking it out. Dennis Mitchell all over the back of Donny van der Rooyen. I think Mornay is just hoping that at some point Dennis Mitchell catches Van der Rooyen, and that forces Donny van der Rooyen to start to defend and maybe alleviate some of the pressure. Yeah, we've got the 2 championship leaders here duking it out in a bit of a train behind Mornay. Quickly jumping ahead, Timo Smith making the move on Melvin Goos. Is he going to be able to make it stick? So Melvin comes back and running alongside him, falling back a bit now. He's on the inside. Fortunately, Timo has to back out. Melvin does very well to keep the position there, and the battle is going to continue. So Timo on the inside secures the position, but for how long? So Melvin still keeping up with him. Possibly very angry that he let that slip. Granted, that's also some really nice racecraft from Timo Smith. Timo drifting around the outside there, opening up the door for Melvin. So we've got another battle going on. Melvin pulling ahead, and I would assume that Timo would, yeah, he's going to give that corner to Melvin Goos. Melvin with some oversteer, and just goes to show how hard these drivers are pushing the cars. So Van der Rooyen and Mitchell have cleared Mornay deploy, and you can see in the background there the 2 cars making an approach. Timo Smith trying to force the dummy defense from Van der Rooyen. Van der Rooyen not really doing anything about it. Timo putting alongside on the inside. And that's 2 very different lines through that corner. So while Timo was able to take the position, he doesn't have the momentum going out of the corner. and Melvin Goes is able to take that position. Let's jump aboard here with Timo, so you can see just how hard they are driving these cars. Unfortunately, we see someone off there. I'm not exactly sure which car that is. A bit quick for the frame rate that I'm running. And you can see Timo just positioning the car in a situation where there's a lockup. And just staying very close to Melvin Goes. Trying to carry as much speed. And maybe not able to do that as well. Going into turn 1, I think this is going to be a comfortable turn for Melvin. A bit of a rest. And Timo aggressively shifting down. Melvin using the wall as a guide to just make that turn a little bit easier. So some of the other battles have subsided a little bit. Although Van Rooyen is still trying to hold off Dennis Mitchell. And these two battles that you can sometimes see together on screen are the current big battles on track. And I think Mitchell might have just decided to stay close enough to Van Rooyen, just catch his draft, so that both of them can catch up with Goes and Smith. They'll definitely not be communicating this in real time, but you can always tell when a driver is no longer attacking you, but rather just utilizing your speed. Timo Smith spinning around Melvin Goes, and you can see him waiting for Melvin Goes. So again, gentleman's agreement, well done to for sticking to that. And that means Donnie Van Rooyen and Dennis Mitchell are through into second and third. So we've got 8 minutes left. Dylan Pasaki is sitting in first with a 10-second lead, but let's see if I can see the logs of how fast these guys are lapping. Just quickly refreshing my timings page, and then we'll hopefully be able to see if there's any kind of closing gap. So, yeah. Still waiting on the timing screens. There we go. Still a bit of a waiting period. So, on track, looking really good for Saki Van Rooyen, Mitchell Goes, Smith, Deploy. Unfortunately, having a bit of equipment issues as we call his name out. Then for the rest days in the rust, Van Beek, Weber, Goes, Wesley Leach and Kalnice. So the gap between Van Rooyen and Pasaki is closing. And unfortunately my timing screen is not accurate at the moment. So I can't accurately say how quickly that gap is closing, but it seems to be less than a second a minute. So that's not as fast as what the rain would want. And Timo Smith jumping to the pits. So he seems to be having some difficult times. Van Rooyen and Mitchell finding some of the back markers, but still continuing with their battle. I still see Timo Smith behind Melvin Goes, so the timing tower must have had a bit of an error in it, because if he had damage and had jumped to pits, he would be so much further behind. So I apologize for that error, but that does mean that Timo Smith is still in the fight, or as much as he can be after jumping over the chicane, trying to avoid the back marker. It's also a difficult thing trying to get out of the way for a battle like this if you're on that section of the track. So another battle is developing here between Mitchell Rust and the Rian van der Westhuizen. So they've been battling quite hard as well. So still 4.5 minutes left. There's a 7-second gap between Versaghi and Van Rooyen. And Van Rooyen is opening up the gap between himself and Mitchell. So that's looking rather solid for now. So the closest two cars on the track, Rian van der Westhuizen and Mitchell Rust. Now I can imagine that the focus for both of these drivers is going to be very, very high at this current point in time. It's always difficult being this close to the end of the race and you've got this close of a battle. And it's a difficult thing, you have to push, you can't just let it be. Or if you're the defending driver, you have to consider, do you risk overdriving the car and then try and stay ahead? Or do you try and be a bit more conservative, let the other car pass you, but then drive to a speed that you can finish the race with? So that's the kind of thought that these drivers have to entertain in their heads. Am I going to push? Am I going to defend? And am I going to attack? The man definitely on the attack is Daniel van Rooyen. Now with the 5 seconds gap between himself and Versaghi, they found another back mark, and I think this is complicating the chase a bit. On a street circuit like this, it's not going to be easy to clear back markers. And I think this is now the gap is now closing down again. So Dennis Mitchell chasing Van Rooyen, and just an update on the earlier battle. So it seems that Mitchell Rust has overtaken Rian van der Westhuizen, and with the gap between them, I do suspect that Van der Westhuizen might have had a bit of a closer encounter of the concrete kind. And then Mitchell following Van Rooyen. We've got a minute and a half plus 2 laps left. Versaghi leading slightly comfortably. I think he might be sweating with the updates that he's getting from his race engineer at this point in time. But he does have the space to finish the race in first, so he just needs to keep consistent. The other thing that's going to count in Versaghi's advantage is there's Mitchell being on the attack here on Van Rooyen. So that's definitely going to be something that's in the back of the mind of Van Rooyen, is this man right here. That's an ever-present threat. Rest of the pack fairly spread out. not too much happening. So we'll keep an eye on this battle right here. So through the chicane they've got a different car in front of them there. I'll be able to tell whose car that is soon, just not from this angle. Bit of a snap oversteer there from the Royan, and he catches it very nicely. With oversteer for Dennis Mitchell now, you can see the gap opening up as he had the reduction of speed. Last lap, Dylan Fasaki comfortably in the lead. He just needs to keep his pace. So the car that you can see in front of Royan in some of these shots is Dylan Fasaki, so he is within visual range, but he's definitely not within striking range. There's Mitchell looking for opportunity, but also maybe rather deciding to play it safe and finish the race in third. He gets very close to Van Rijn, who's had a bit of a slowdown, and that's going to cost Mitchell time. Dylan Fasaki catching up with the back marker, so unfortunately that back marker is going to have to make another lap, making his race a bit longer. But we'll see where everyone ends up. So, your race winner, Dylan Fasaki, this man right here, a well-earned first position. Then second, Donnie van Rijn. I can imagine him being very happy with that. Dennis Mitchell in third. Melvin de Geus fourth. Timo Smit kicking himself about some of the mistakes that he's made, but some stellar gentleman-like driving from him. As we see, synchronized donuts. I'll see if there's a better camera for this. No. So I'll leave it at that. There we go. So I'm going to try and grab the winning driver from both races, and we'll see where if we can quickly interview them.
No problem.
Right. So we've got the two winning drivers with us. So from race one, Dennis Mitchell, who has the luck of the Irish, it would seem, but also some stellar driving from him. And then Dylan Fasaki. So we'll start off with you, Dennis Mitchell. Turn one, race one. What went through your head?
Usually it's the opposite. Usually I'm the one going off. No, I had to just dodge everyone else. It was quite lucky.
Yeah, and I mean, you managed to survive and then pulled off a nice, consistent race from there, which was probably your key to success there. But how long did it take you to settle after that? Because I can imagine a driver being quite unsettled after everything that happened there.
Not too long, actually. Probably it's more a case of just letting the car settle down. The first few laps, the tires are always a bit of a struggle, so I usually give it about 2 laps before I start to push. But in this case, I ended up hitting the wall at some point, so I made it about 3 or 4 laps, and then I started to push.
Ah, I see. But yeah, you definitely started to push and open up a really nice gap. So congrats on that race, and I think that you're going to be very happy with that in terms of what it does for your championship position at the moment. Kind of just securing your lead as it is.
Yes, thanks very much for that.
Then another man of the hour, Dylan Visagie. So race 2 was also a very interesting one. I saw a bit of a ping pong effect again into turn 1, but everyone seemed to survive. How was that race for you?
Yeah, like I just spoke to him, Donnie. I told him, yeah, I got a massive hole shot there on the pull away. And then luckily I just got it stuck then in the first corner, and then I saw in the rearview mirror there's some action behind me. Then I was like, yeah, this is my gap. I need to take advantage of it. And luckily in the end, I think Dennis and Mdani was like, I think 3 seconds behind me. So I was pushing like crazy just to keep them behind me.
I was wondering about that at some point, because I don't know if you've got something like crew chief acting as a race engineer for you, but the fact that you say you know that they were closing the gap behind you, yeah, we were wondering whether you were trying to push or trying to conserve and just kind of eke it out until the end.
Yeah, I just have the normal Assetto Corsa telemetry showing the distances between each car. And then, yeah, then I just kept my eye on that and the time left. So, yeah, then I just pushed and kept the car in a straight line, and I hoped not to finish the life of the tires. And then, yeah, it took me to the end of the race.
That's awesome to hear. And then in terms of pressure, did it start to feel overwhelming at some point, or do you think you kind of had it in control?
Well, the first 2 laps, my nerves was quite shot, just to keep the car straight, so I don't bugger up in any turns, over throttling the car and then just spin out. So, nerves was quite shot in the first 2 laps. But after that, when everything settled down, I just get my head down and just pushed for the win.
Yeah, well done for that. And yeah, so a very, very well earned first place there. Thank you to both of you. I also want to say thank you to everyone on the YouTube channel. So I'll just quickly check in there. So we've got Langley Matt saying, nice going, Dennis. Melvin Goos, thanks, guys. Was fun. Sean Weber also saying, well done, Dylan. Sean actually had his engine blow up in race 2. Shame. That's a bit of a rough one. So yeah, thanks for everyone watching. Everyone shouting for their favorite drivers. Once again, I just want to thank Alvin, that's making this a possibility for us in terms of getting some high quality imagery up on screen, and just putting a bit more extra effort into everything. Also thanks to Mornay Deploy for his effort with all of the video work, and then all of the guys behind the scenes running the league. It's always underappreciated in terms of how much work actually goes into it. So I just want to say thank you to you all as well. And then until next time, we'll see you then.